The UK energy hypocrisy is collapsing the very thing holding up the economy. They're taxing it even more. You can't buy this kind of stupid. Stay tuned to the Energy Newsbeat Daily Stand-Up. High cost of energy pushed UK industry to the brink. Net zero has actually caused what it's designed to do, and that is deindustrialize. This is a horrible story for the UK. This week saw another hike in Britain's electricity price gap, the latest in a string of hikes that have ranked the country among the top 5 with the most expensive electricity in the world. But there is a bigger problem. Holy smokes, the country is undisputed leader in industrial electricity prices in the world, and that cost is its government's energy transition plans. I've got about 3 more stories after this that are going along on the UK here, and I feel sorry for all the citizens of the UK. This story happens to have a Starmer on there, and Ed Miliband, and Ed Miliband definitely has got the likings of a Gromison Wallet character, one of the greatest exports ever to come out of the UK. He not so much. There yet another reason for the cap. Cost involved matching supply of energy with demand, which includes switching generators as wind farms on and off. In other words, electricity prices around the country are soaring because the so-called curtailment, or the need to turn off wind turbines or solar installations when there's too much supply. And holy smokes, it almost 2.7 billion pounds, or 3.7 billion in balancing costs. If you're a balancing authority, you've got a problem. This is now passed on to the consumers. Wind curtailments is currently a major driver in the balancing costs. NESCO said this because a large portion of wind capacity in Great Britain is connected in Scotland. Ruh-roh. Energy security starts at home. And I've got another story on Norway here on this. The bind is quite serious. In fact, the argument can be made that Britain's net zero efforts have been instrumental in its inadvertent deindustrialization and the surge of energy poverty. Yet, perhaps worse for the government is the fact that net zero has been bad for net zero, paradoxically as it may sound. Essentially, the more money the government spends on wind and solar subsidies, other forms of aid, the less money it has to spend on other transition-related investments that are needed. You can't buy this kind of bad management. Holy smokes. Let's go to the next story here. The UK energy hypocrisy is collapsing the very thing holding up the economy by taxing it even more. So if you're doing something really bad, go ahead and pig pile on it and do it really, really, really bad, and then tax it so that it won't provide you any information, any power at all. In pursuit of the net zero future, the United Kingdom has embarked on a path that reeks of hypocrisy, aggressively taxing its oil and gas sector while simultaneously relying on it to prop up the economy. The Labour government's recent hikes to the Energy Profits Levy, the EPL, now staggering 78%, headline this rate, exemplify its content, deterring investments and accelerating the decline of the North Sea production. Nobody wants to go out and do what's called expensive exploration and finding out if there's other things out there. In fact, there is a lot of gas that they could probably still get out of there. The industry warns of an impending collapse. A new report suggests reforming this tax could inject 137 billion, 185 billion, not 137 pounds, but 185 billion into the UK economy by 2050, safeguarding jobs and energy security. This is absolutely pathetic. The ambitious target demands 100% reduction in greenhouse emissions, with the electricity sector aiming for net zero by 2035. I hate to tell you this. It ain't gonna happen with the current technology unless we discover technology between now and then, like the Tesla energy that was that did not require anything and it would use the firmament. Then you'd be able to be net zero. But they killed him for that one. So let's go over the regulation and hostile stance toward oil and gas deters investors with sector warning that production could vanish within years, not decades. The more they tax it, the more people are going to go away. The United States has got a fantastic setup where we've got royalty owners, and I put this in this article, lessons from across the pond, the U.S. fiscal prudence and environmental balance. When you take a look at the United States oil and gas industry, we did learn some positive things from ESG, environmental, social, and governance. Throw the social because that woke stuff is terrible. But the governance, which is giving back to its investors, and the environmental, the United States absolutely took to heart and have been giving billions back. Oil majors like ExxonMobil and Chevron prioritize shareholders' returns, boasting an average project yields of 22%, outpacing renewables by 8%. And I far disagree with that 8%, but I had to put that in because that's what the research came back said. 8%. Well, I got to go look up, see how they came up with that. But there's a call for sanity, reform or ruin. You got two choices. Either you're going to go down the net zero path in the UK for total deindustrialization, just like as deindustrialization and net zero are going on in Germany and the EU, and or let's go to the same kind of thing is going on in New Jersey, Delaware, Connecticut, California, New York. Any of those places, you're going to have the same problems. Let's go to the next story here. And I apologize. I sure hope I don't mispronounce your name, Kemi. Kemi Badenoch, the UK Tory leader, pledges to abandon net zero and maximize North Sea oil and gas production. In a breath of fresh air, Kemi hits it out of the park. I don't know that she's got the leverage or the political clout to get elected, but let's go through. In a bold move that could reshape the UK's energy landscape, Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch, I believe is how you say her name, has vowed to scrap net zero requirements for oil and gas extraction in the North Sea, prioritizing fossil fuel production to boost economic growth and energy security. Holy smokes, Batman, this is actually kind of cool. Way to go. This pledge comes from growing political and public and political frustration with the high cost and economic fallout from green energy policies. If you have not figured it out yet, green energy policies are nothing more than a wealth transfer. All of the Obama loans out of the Obama era that went to green energy companies, most of those green energy companies went bankrupt, and that money was funneled back to Democrats in other funding. Don't take my word for it. Go look it up. Environmental groups such as the Rosenbank campaign have condemned the proposal, warning that development fields like Rosenbank, Britain's largest untapped oil field, could emit more CO2 than 28 poorest countries combined annually. I'm calling hoo-ha and bull hockey on that. That is absolutely misguided information. The Climate Change Committee, the CCC, estimates the net cost of about 0.02% of the GDP until 2050, but opponents claim this understates the true financial strain. They do not even know how to use a crayon. The Climate Change Committee is incompetent and has absolutely zero clue how to run a abacus or a crayon. They do not know how to math. So let's go to the next story here. Energy security starts at home, and Norway needs to look out for its own. Why am I putting Norway in with today's podcast? In an era when energy demands skyrocketing and climate change is reshaping weather patterns, You got to hand it to West. Got to throw that in there somehow. But it's also the wind turbines are causing the wind patterns to change. They evaporate the heat, and not many people are talking about this, but they dry out the soil, and that changes it. So weather does change when you add wind turbines. Norway has long exported its abundant clean energy to neighbors like the UK and other EU countries. But as soon as they started doing that, their prices for their citizens went up. Norway's electrical generation, overwhelmingly reliant on hydropower, accounts for 90%, which is wonderful, of their mix, with wind contributing 9% and natural gas 1%. They do not have a good backup system in Norway. This heavy profile has positioned Norway as a net exporter, producing surplus energy from its network, 1,240 hydropower reservoirs with a total capacity of 87 terawatts. In 2021, Norway exported a record 25.8 terawatts, while imported only 8.2 terawatts, resulting in a net surplus of 17.6. What they've got now is a problem because they feel that they've got a drought coming on, and this drought has happened, I believe, in 2003. They narrowly avoided one back then. So you've got to make sure that you leave enough water in your reservoirs for your citizens. If you are the UK, budget accordingly and know that you may not be able to use some of the Norwegian interconnect for your fees. Your prices are already high. Start working out some extra natural gas in there and quit having the excess tax on and wiping out, and quit doing what Governor Newsom is doing to California. California is following the net zero playbook in doing deindustrialization. The fourth largest economy in the world is what he brags about, but he's also the largest poor population in the United States. What a horrible representation for what the U.S. economy could be. Let's go to the last story, but I want to give Steve Reese and his team a shout out over there at Reese Energy Consulting. Go to reeseenergyconsulting.com. If you're in the midstream space, or if you're a Bitcoin miner and you want to find out where stranded gas is and you want to put in your own generator, Reese Energy Consulting, behind the meter, put in your own data center, they can out there. They are cool cats and they know how to get it done. Let's go to this last story. Putin and Met to meet in China, forging energy ties amid global tensions. I want to first start this last story in saying that, hey, I am interviewing General Michael Flynn this Wednesday. We're going to release it after we get it through production, and I cannot wait to talk to this great American. He has been put through the ringer, and as I'm getting ready for this, I've been getting questions from a lot of fans about what would you want to ask General Flynn? And we've got 10 books to give away, and we also have 10 copies of his movie to give away. So when we sit back and take a look at the movies, we've got his books to give away. So 20 people will be getting his books and or the movie. So in displaying endurance, Russian Vladimir Putin and Indian Prime Minister Modi met in China. And I have warned, if you've listened to the podcast, I warned President Trump, do not overtax India, because this is exactly what was going to happen. You have the opportunity, President Trump, to go do business with President Putin and start up a new trading bloc. The new trading bloc can be the United States, Russia, India, Saudi Arabia, all the great deals that you've done in the Middle East, and then let the EU and the UK and the other ones follow their net zero and let them fail. It is the Bank of London, and you have said this yourself, the Bank of London, Zelensky, and the Bank of France are causing problems and not wanting to stop the war. You get President Putin to the table by going and doing a deal with President Putin. He's already signed the declare for the Sakhalin oil project and Exxon. We can do energy dominance by getting out and exporting our great oil and gas technology and helping Russia in the areas where we do business together. Again, this is not me saying I approve of President Putin. I approve of doing business with President Putin because we do business with China. I would rather do business with President Putin than I would Zelensky. Zelensky has been a traitor to his people and has caused serious, irreparable harm for the UK. And I hope everybody can understand that it is Zelensky, it is the UK, it is France, it is the Bank of London that is causing all of these people to die. This story goes through and talks more about that. But again, this is about getting Putin to the table. He showed up in Alaska ready to do a deal. He brought people with him to do deals with. So, President Trump, if you're listening, do a deal. Do what you do best. End the war by doing a deal. With that, like, subscribe, and again, thank you to Steve Reese and all of his wonderful folks over there on Reese Energy Consulting. And I sure hope you guys have a fantastic day. Like, subscribe, go to the energynewsbeat.substack.com, go to the energyreeseconsulting.com, and then go to energynewsbeat.co and see all of our great stories and have a lot of fun there.